Well, hello and welcome back. I am Josh Ebert with A3, the Association for Advancing Automation, and we're excited to be back here with some awesome guests. I have Dr. Jerrit Williams, the Assistant Professor of Engineering Technology from Illinois State. He is actually our Educator of the Year, so just nominated, and we're really excited to have him here. And also with me, we have Amanda Beaton with Siemens. She's the Program Manager over Siemens Cooperates with Education. And we are so thrilled to have both these people. Siemens has been a huge sponsor with our education initiatives we've been doing here at Automate. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, we have an Automate Education Pavilion. We had a student challenge going on this week. We had our Educator of the Year, and that's something they were also sponsoring. And so with that honor, because of all that you've done with us and our appreciation, I'll let you kick off the first question with Dr. Williams.
All right. Congrats, Dr. Williams.
Thank you.
What does it mean to be named Educator of the Year?
It hasn't fully sunk in, even though we're here. It's just so much going on that maybe in a few days when things cool off a little bit, I'll say, wow, this is what it really means. But just learning since I was nominated that I was among, a few finalists who were amazing, that I was even considered to be a part of these terrific educators has meant a lot to me. I've had some conversations with last year's winner, Danny Murphy. He's an amazing automation educator. Just this morning, he sent me a text. Is like, hey, congratulations, good luck, you got this, sort of thing. And I really appreciate that everything that Siemens has done for educators and A3 is doing, to invite educators to a real world industry partnership like this. So this has been great. So I'm really looking forward to the next year.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. Like I said, we are honored to have you, and you had some tough competition. So, it was a hard line to choose between you, but we are super honored to have you. So you teach some of the most hands-on courses, in your Department of Tech, everything from robotics, automation, power systems, As a teacher myself, I'm just curious, what's your approach to making these topics come alive for the students? That thing of just taking a title or a course name, something. How do you make this something that the kids just eat and breathe?
Sure. So, Illinois State University has the unique advantage of having this space called the Caterpillar Integrated Manufacturing Lab. Okay. And we have industrial robots, we have PLCs, we have vision systems, conveyors. It looks like a miniature version of the space we're in right now.
Oh, cool.
So that makes my job a lot easier in a lot of ways. But I also have a huge responsibility of saying I have all this real industrial stuff. I'm going to partner with industrial partners, workforce partners in Central Illinois, where we're located, and beyond, to do real activities with students. So you're right, hands-on is a key for our program. I want students to leave with, they're not going to have every skill that they need, but they're going to be ready to take on the skills and challenges in their job. So I would say that, to any educator who maybe doesn't have that start, that you're not out of the water. There's a lot of opportunity to still get involved with automation technology, in different ways. So you don't have to have that, sure. But we're just very fortunate that we have that as a start, and I feel like a strong pull to do those kinds of activities, hands-on and partner with industry.
Awesome.
So I knew Dr. Williams loved teaching when I met him, and he pulled out his phone and said, "Do you want to see my lab?" And I said, "Sure." But what's the one moment that you always go back to that reminds you that you love teaching?
So I've joked with a few other teachers, and they feel the same way about this, but I still get really excited sort of through the student when the first time they press a button and it turns on a light or turns on a motor, or makes a sound or something like that. And I may over exaggerate a little bit and kind of jump around and platform and things. And, but it's that feeling of, hey, I did this. I programmed automation. I used, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those are kind of the day-to-day and the moment things. It's hard though, sometimes as a teacher, we all know this, to recognize when you've maybe made a difference or made an impact. I always kind of joke that our return on investment is uncertain. It's a long return sometimes. But you'll get, if I hop on LinkedIn and I see students got a promotion or they're working in a job that it would be like my dream job if I were them, or
I was a little jealous.
Or maybe they send me a note to say, hey, thanks. And I'm like, who sent this? Oh, this is not a person I expected to. I didn't think they really got much out of it, but those are kind of the important moments. And I would say, something that I've tried to do to help me understand what's going on now in my classroom is, I ask students to write an executive summary of what they did in my course at the end of the class. And it's not so much to say, oh, I love this class or I hated this class or whatever the case may be. It's so that it's kind of two things. One, they can start thinking about their resume. They can write down, we used, this type of PLC and did this type of programming or worked with these robots to do these applications and so on. But then also provide them some other self-reflection about, what was a problem that you had to overcome? Because that's like a job interview question, right? Tell me about a time that you had to solve a problem, and they do that in their coursework and things like that. So
it's kind of a hidden way of getting that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I learned a lot from that, and so I'm kind of riding high on that right now because we just wrapped up for the semester, and I'm reading some of those, and I'm like, all right, they showed they really learned something, and that they've got a really bright future. So that gets me excited.
Well, I know, again, as a former educator, you talked about the idea of you don't always get that payoff. Someone once told me that thing about you plant the seed and you don't always get to sit under the tree because you don't know what the future holds with it.
That's a good way to put it.
But I like that you've seen that rewarding part. You've seen the product, if you will. So congratulations on that. Kind of shifting a little bit, you've helped design some new curricula, including sustainability-focused STEM courses and VR-based robotics. What drives your innovation in thinking up these new things? I know you maybe alluded to you're trying to see what's going on out there, but what things help you to think, I've got the next great course idea?
Well, obviously I want to stay relevant to what's going on in the industry. As you walk around, the automate show floor, you see, digital twins, you see simulation, you see mobile robotic. I mean, everything, right? Vision systems, you name it. Part of me is, I love to learn. I think learning is a really important part of teaching. And so, one thing I do is I walk around and think like, what is something I don't know about? Because if I can get excited about learning that, I can learn with my students and along with them and really let them know that we're learning this together. You have to have a passion for learning new things. You won't know everything. Yeah. And I think that can make this world a little bit intimidating is like, I could never do this because it's just too much. Like, how do you even get started? Right. And it's like, well, you pick one thing and you sit down and you try to learn about it. And then also I'm a little restless maybe with things. I heard some stat one time that, a lot of teachers are, A students, like the best and the brightest, they're maybe middle of the road. I myself was probably a B or C student, but I was a curious person, a little restless at times and, fidgety and have a little bit of energy. So I just try to channel that in a way that is productive. So, learning about the next best thing, and it works itself out a lot of times. And then, I've also been fortunate, you mentioned like sustainability, that at Illinois State, we have some different majors, different programs. One focuses on sustainable and renewable energy. And I've got to work with those faculty as well. So that's given us a lot of opportunities. And I think it fits really well within the types of, initiatives and workforce initiatives that we'll see now and in the future.
Awesome.
All right. We talked about robots, cobots, PLCs, HMIs, lots of stuff yesterday, but tell us about one of your very favorite projects.
So that's kind of a tough one to narrow down. I would say that when you look at sort of all the projects that we've done, a lot of times students will come up with the idea and we'll say, all right, let's make it happen. And they'll say, well, I don't know how to do it. And I'll say, that's fine. I don't either. That's why we, that's why we do this stuff. But they usually zero in on food. So one of my favorite recent projects was one of my longtime mentors and faculty colleagues was retiring. And so he had said sort of in jest, I'd like to have a robot serve the cake at my retirement. And so I said, all right. I didn't say it out loud. I was like, yeah, we'll do that. We'll make that happen. So we went through a lot of cakes to get it right. But at the end of the day, and students helped build this, we had to do it all very covertly, right behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, we had a robot serving cake at his retirement. So that was a fun project, among many others. Too many to think about.
It's always hard picking a favorite.
Yeah, sure.
Favorite student, right?
In recent memory.
So your work, you do some stuff in after-school STEM programs, especially with underrepresented communities, and that's something that I think inspires all of us. Again, even as a former educator, that's something that I can relate to and appreciate that work. But what are you learning about equity and access to these programs? I know you even maybe touched on it before, like when you compare schools to schools, not every school has an amazing lab, right? So just what are your insights on some of that stuff?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I'm very fortunate that I work on a National Science Foundation project right now called Supercharge, which long acronym, but I'll try to nail it here. STEM-based university pathways, encouraging relationships with Chicago high schools in automation, robotics, and green energy. So there's that sustainability piece. We have an interdisciplinary team, but we do things in underserved areas, schools that may not have robotics or computer science programs. But we're working with them to help them kind of see some of the fundamentals, do hands-on projects after school in an informal setting, but also work on projects that are relevant to their communities. So we want to let them know that there's a pathway for them in education, but also, future careers that will impact their own communities. And like you mentioned, the equity piece it's really important to me to show students that, I didn't start out in this. This wasn't my first direction in my career.
Sure.
I sort of came into this, and because I was curious about this stuff, and because I had people telling me that, you may not see things in yourself that others do,
Right.
but I think you have a lot of potential. If you like this, go for it.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to give back in that way a little bit, trying to move that forward, pay it forward.
No, and that's a perfect segue. We've just got a few minutes left. So, maybe one thing that we'll wrap up on is, you may be aware we've got our next gen student tours going on today. We've got over 1,000 students that are hitting the Automate show floor, ranging from middle school on up. So, you talk about just like what maybe if you were to give a piece of parting advice or just something to kind of inspire the next generation, knowing that they may not all choose this industry, right? But just thinking broadly, what would you say to them? And maybe that's how we'll wrap up.
Sure. I think I say this to not only my students, but I'm going to dangerously speak on behalf of my fellow educators in that, we appreciate the challenges that students give us. Now, in the moment, it can be a little tough sometimes, get a little frustrated, we're not thinking about it. But we look back, when students challenge me, when the students challenge us, it helps us be better, helps us think about, how can we learn more? How can we get more resources to provide our students new opportunities and things like that? So, thank you to students for challenging us as educators would be one thing I would say. And then the other piece of it is, maybe that advice I was given early in my career that, you may not see something in yourself right now,
Right.
but somebody does. Your teacher sees it, your family sees it. We know that, I don't want to sound like professor too much here, but research tells us that,
Right.
Your teachers, your family, your friends, people that that work in and around this kind of industry are like the biggest influences on students to go into this. So, ask a teacher, how you can get involved in this stuff, or ask if they know anybody in industry
Right.
that could partner with them, because I know that's what a lot of industry partners want to do. We know that the workforce needs a next generation.
Oh, there's a huge
And like students are the next generation.
Yeah.
So, and it started at as early age as possible. So,
and I think you see that here. We've got, you're clearly a believer in hands-on and experiential learning. So I think this is an example of that, right? What better way to get kids out and to see something literally in some of these booths, get their hands on, but to experience the industry and experience potential jobs. I think it's awesome. And we, again, applaud you for all the work that you've been doing. Want to thank Amanda again for all of your work toward this, your sponsorship, and just being behind us every step of the way. And,
happy to be a part of it.
Yeah. And we can't do it without educators like you. So thank you again and congratulations. This is very well deserved. So
thank you.
To our audience out there, again, we thank everyone for watching and we'll be back in a few minutes.